Your beagle suddenly stops dead in the middle of a walk, nose glued to the ground. Refusing to budge no matter how hard you tug the leash. You might have thought to yourself, "Why is my dog so stubborn?" Or perhaps when your border collie relentlessly circles your visiting nieces and nephews, herding them into a corner of the living room, you worry, "Does my dog not like children?" But the truth is far more fascinating, and far less personal, than you might imagine. What you're witnessing isn't defiance or aggression. It's not a personality flaw or a training failure on your part. What you're seeing is the echo of history. A genetic whisper that has traveled through generations, carefully preserved and amplified by human hands over centuries. Your beagle isn't being stubborn, she's doing exactly what her ancestors were bred to do. In the English countryside of the 13th century, when packs of small hounds were developed specifically to track rabbits through dense underbrush, their noses so powerful they could follow a scent trail hours old. Your border collie isn't harassing your relative's children. He's expressing an instinct honed on the windswept hills of the Scottish borders, where his forebears spent long days moving sheep across vast pastures with nothing but their intense stare and lightning-quick movements. This is the blueprint of behavior, the invisible architecture that shapes everything your dog does, thinks, and feels. And understanding it changes everything. The story begins not in your living room, but in the meeting rooms of the American Kennel Club. Founded in 1884 in Philadelphia, where a group of dog enthusiasts gathered to create order from the chaos of canine diversity. They recognized something profound: that dogs weren't just dogs. Each breed represented a specialized tool, refined over generations for a specific purpose. The classification system they developed, which remains the gold standard in the United States today, divides breeds into 7 distinct groups: sporting, hound, working, terrier, toy, non-sporting, and herding. But these aren't arbitrary categories. Each group represents a different job description, a different set of skills that have been literally bred into the bone. Consider the sporting group, home to breeds like Golden Retrievers, Labrador Retrievers, and English Springer Spaniels. These dogs were designed to work alongside hunters in the wetlands and fields. Their entire existence focused on finding, flushing, and retrieving game birds. When your Golden refuses to come inside from the backyard, because he's found a tennis ball in the bushes, and wants to bring it to you for the 50th time that afternoon, he's not being annoying. He's been a retriever. The act of carrying objects gently in his mouth, of racing back to you, with tail wagging and eyes bright, releases a cascade of neurochemicals in his brain. That feels, to him, like pure joy. It's what he was made for. Research published in the journal Applied Animal Behavior Science in 2019 found that retriever breeds showed significantly elevated levels of dopamine and oxytocin during retrieving activities compared to baseline, suggesting that these behaviors are intrinsically rewarding at a neurological level. Or take the herding group, which includes border collies, Australian shepherds, and German shepherds. These breeds were sculpted by the needs of farmers and ranchers, who required dogs capable of moving livestock with precision and intelligence. The eye that a border collie fixes on moving objects, whether sheep or children or the family cat, is a modified predatory stare, frozen at the moment, just before a wolf would pounce on prey. The circling behavior, the nipping at heels, the obsessive focus. All of these are carefully calibrated versions of hunting behaviors, redirected and refined for pastoral work. When you watch your Australian shepherd trying to herd your toddler away from the stairs, you're not seeing a dangerous dog, you're seeing a safety mechanism, an instinct to keep the flock together and away from perceived danger. A study conducted by researchers at the University of Pennsylvania's School of Veterinary Medicine in 2017 found that herding breeds showed distinct patterns of visual attention and movement prediction, tracking the trajectories of moving objects with significantly greater accuracy than non-herding breeds. The hound group tells yet another story, divided into sighthounds and scenthounds. These breeds represent two different hunting strategies. Sighthounds, like greyhounds and whippets, were bred to chase down fast prey across open terrain. Their entire bodies designed for explosive speed, their attention locked on movement. When your greyhound suddenly bolts after a squirrel with such intensity that you nearly lose your grip on the leash, understand that you're holding back an animal whose ancestors could run down deer across the plains of ancient Persia. Scenthounds, like beagles, bloodhounds, and basset hounds, took a different approach. Slow, methodical tracking, nose to the ground, following scent trails with single-minded determination. The olfactory bulb in a beagle's brain is proportionally 40 times larger than yours, processing scent information with a complexity you literally cannot imagine. When your beagle ignores your calls because she's found an interesting smell, it's not disobedience, it's biology. Her brain is flooded with sensory information that is far more compelling than your voice. A three-dimensional map of scent that tells her who passed by, when, what they ate, and whether they were stressed or calm. The working group encompasses some of the most impressive physical specimens in the canine world: Rottweilers, Boxers, Great Danes, Saint Bernards, and Siberian Huskies. These dogs were bred for serious labor, pulling carts and sleds, guarding property, and performing water rescues. The strength in a Rottweiler's jaw wasn't developed for intimidation. It was necessary for driving cattle to market across the rough terrain of medieval Germany, where the breed earned its name from the town of Rottweil. When your husky howls at the moon or tries to pull you down the street during walks, remember that his ancestors pulled sleds across hundreds of miles of Siberian tundra in temperatures that would kill an unprotected human in minutes. That pull you feel on the leash? That's the feeling of barely restrained power of a dog whose body and mind are calibrated for endurance work that would exhaust most other breeds in hours. Terriers, that scrappy, feisty group that includes Jack Russell Terriers, Bull Terriers, and Scottish Terriers, were ratters and vermin. Hunters, bred to go into dark holes after prey and fight to the death if necessary. The tenacity, the refusal to back down, the seemingly inexhaustible energy. These aren't character flaws, they're survival traits. A terrier that gave up easily when facing a cornered rat in a barn wouldn't live long enough to pass on its genes. When your Jack Russell tears apart a stuffed toy with savage intensity, shaking it back and forth until the stuffing flies, he's practicing the killing bite his ancestors used on rodents. It looks violent to you, but to him, it's play that satisfies a deep biological need. The toy group, often dismissed as mere lapdogs, has its own fascinating history. Breeds like Chihuahuas, Pomeranians, and Cavalier King Charles Spaniels were bred primarily for companionship, yes, but don't mistake size for simplicity. These dogs were the comfort animals of royalty and nobility, bred not just for appearance, but for temperament, for an almost uncanny ability to read human emotion and provide comfort. Research from Azabu University in Japan, published in 2015, found that when dogs and humans make eye contact, both experience a surge in oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Toy breeds, through centuries of close human contact, have been selected for enhanced versions of this response. When your Cavalier seems to sense that you've had a bad day and won't leave your side, that's not a coincidence. That's generations of breeding for emotional attunement. Understanding these blueprints transforms frustration into empathy. The behaviors that drive you crazy, the ones you've labeled as problems, suddenly make sense. Your beagle isn't ignoring you out of spite, she's doing what 600 years of selective breeding designed her to do. Your border collie isn't neurotic, he's unemployed, a working dog without work, and that pent-up energy has to go somewhere. Your husky isn't trying to escape because he doesn't love you. He's listening to an instinct that says a dog should be able to run for miles, exploring territory, and working as part of a team. This understanding is the foundation of empathy, and empathy is the foundation of a better relationship with your dog. When you stop fighting against your dog's nature and start working with it, everything changes. The beagle gets longer sniff walks where she's allowed to use her nose. The border collie gets puzzle toys and agility training that give his brilliant mind something to do. The husky gets a running partner or a dog backpack that makes him feel like he has a job again. Suddenly, the problem behaviors diminish not because you've suppressed them, but because you've given them appropriate outlets. This is what responsible ownership truly means, not expecting your dog to be something he's not, but honoring what he is. It means recognizing that when you brought home that adorable puppy, you weren't getting a blank slate. You were inheriting a legacy, accepting the gift and the responsibility of caring for a living piece of history. A creature shaped by human needs and human hands into something unique and irreplaceable. The blueprint of behavior is your first map in this journey of understanding. It's where empathy begins, where the frustration of, "Why won't my dog just listen?" transforms into the wonder of, "Look at what my dog was designed to do." And once you see your dog through this lens, once you understand the why behind the what, you'll never look at those behaviors the same way again. Your French bulldog is 3 years old, full of personality, making those adorable snorting sounds that first made you fall in love with the breed. He plays, he eats, he sleeps curled up against your leg every night. To your eyes, he's the picture of health. But beneath that compact, muscular body, beneath that pushed-in face you find so endearing, there's a clock ticking. A genetic time bomb that was set not by nature, but by human preference, by our desire for a certain look, a certain aesthetic that we found irresistible. This is the hidden code, the secret written into your dog's DNA long before you ever met him, before he was even born. And understanding it might be the most important thing you ever do for your companion. The story of canine genetic health is, in many ways, a story of unintended consequences. When breeders in 19th century England took the already compact bulldog and bred it smaller, flatter-faced, more extreme in its features to create what would become the French bulldog, they weren't thinking about tracheal collapse or brachycephalic obstructive airway syndrome. They were thinking about appearance, about creating a companion dog that fit perfectly in the lap. That had a face that looked almost human in its expressiveness. They succeeded brilliantly at their goal. But success came with a price that wouldn't be fully understood for generations. The French bulldog, which became the most registered breed with the American Kennel Club in 2023, overtaking even the Labrador Retriever's 3-decade reign, is now at the center of a health crisis that veterinarians describe as heartbreaking. A comprehensive study published in Canine Medicine and Genetics in 2022, analyzing health records from over 43,000 dogs across the United Kingdom, found that French bulldogs were 42.4 times more likely to develop brachycephalic obstructive airway syndrome than non-brachycephalic breeds. 42 times. That's not a marginal increase, that's a categorical difference in health outcomes. What does this mean in practical terms? It means that your French bulldog, the one who seems fine right now, might struggle to breathe during a simple walk on a warm day. Those cute snorting sounds? They're not just quirky noises. They're signs of airway obstruction, of a dog working harder than he should to get oxygen into his lungs. The flattened face that makes him look like a little gargoyle has compressed his airways, elongated his soft palate, and narrowed his nostrils. Every breath is more difficult than it should be. As he ages, as tissues naturally lose elasticity, those airways will narrow further. By the time he's 6 or 7, he might need surgery just to breathe comfortably. A procedure called brachycephalic airway surgery that costs between $2,000 and $5,000 and requires cutting away excess tissue from his throat. But it's not just his airways. That compact, barrel-chested body? It puts enormous pressure on his spine. French bulldogs are predisposed to intervertebral disc disease, where the cushioning discs between vertebrae degenerate or rupture, causing anything from mild pain to complete paralysis. The same 2022 study found that French bulldogs were 15.5 times more likely to develop this condition than other breeds. One day, your dog is jumping on the couch the next day. He's dragging his back legs, howling in pain, and you're facing an emergency surgery that costs $8,000 or more, with no guarantee of full recovery. Golden Retrievers tell a different story, but the ending rhymes. These dogs, consistently ranked among America's top 3 favorite breeds, are dying of cancer at rates that shock even experienced veterinarians. Research from the Morris Animal Foundation's Golden Retriever Lifetime Study, launched in 2012 and following over 3,000 Golden Retrievers throughout their lives, revealed that approximately 60% of Golden Retrievers will develop cancer in their lifetime, compared to roughly 25% of dogs overall. 60%, more than half. The most common is hemangiosarcoma, an aggressive cancer of blood vessel cells that often isn't detected until it ruptures and causes internal bleeding. Your Golden might be chasing tennis balls in the yard on Tuesday. By Friday, she could be gone. The tragedy is amplified by timing. Many Golden Retrievers develop cancer between 7 and 10 years old, in what should be their golden years, when the puppy chaos has settled into comfortable companionship. Dr. Rodney Page, who directed the study's pathology efforts until 2020, described the emotional toll in an interview with National Public Radio in 2018. "We see families devastated, absolutely devastated, because their dog was fine yesterday. They brought them in because the dog seemed a little tired, maybe not eating quite right, and we found their abdomen full of blood from a ruptured tumor. There's often nothing we can do. But cancer isn't their only shadow. Hip dysplasia, a malformation of the hip joint that causes arthritis and pain, affects approximately 19.6% of Golden Retrievers. According to data from the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals, compiled from evaluations conducted between 2011 and 2020. That's nearly 1 in 5 dogs dealing with a painful, degenerative condition that will worsen with age. You'll notice it gradually. Your Golden, who once bounded upstairs, now hesitates, takes them one at a time. She has trouble getting up from lying down. She's stiff after rest, limping after play. By the time the signs are obvious, the damage is done. The joint has been grinding bone on bone, wearing away cartilage, creating inflammation and pain with every step. Dachshunds, those long, low dogs that look like someone stretched a regular dog on a medieval rack, face their own particular curse. That elongated spine, which gives them their distinctive silhouette, is a structural nightmare. 25% of dachshunds will experience intervertebral disc disease during their lifetime. According to research published in Acta Veterinaria Scandinavica in 2016. 1 in 4. The same study found that dachshunds were 10 to 12 times more likely to suffer disc problems than mongrels of similar size. Their long backs, suspended between front and rear legs like a bridge with inadequate support, put constant stress on those intervertebral discs. Jumping off furniture, running down stairs, or even playing too roughly can cause a disc to bulge or rupture, pressing on the spinal cord. Some dogs lose feeling in their back legs overnight. Some lose bladder control. Some will never walk again without surgery, and even with surgery, outcomes are uncertain. German Shepherds, the breed that epitomizes loyalty and working ability, are plagued by degenerative myelopathy, a progressive disease of the spinal cord that resembles amyotrophic lateral sclerosis in humans. It usually begins around 8 to 14 years of age with weakness in the hind legs and a wobbliness when walking. Over months, the weakness progresses forward. Eventually, the dog loses the ability to walk. There is no cure, no treatment that halts progression. You watch your strong, capable companion slowly lose control of his body, remaining mentally alert while physically failing. The gene responsible, a mutation in the superoxide dismutase gene, has been identified. We've known about it since 2008, when researchers at the University of Missouri published their findings in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Yet the mutation persists in the breeding population because carriers show no symptoms unless they inherit the gene from both parents. Cavalier King Charles Spaniels, those sweet-faced lap dogs with eyes that could melt stone, carry perhaps the most heartbreaking genetic burden of all syringomyelia, a condition where the skull is too small for the brain, causing brain tissue to be forced into the spinal canal. Imagine a headache that never stops, a pressure in your skull that worsens when you're excited or when you lower your head to eat or drink. Many affected dogs scratch constantly at their neck and shoulders, not because of fleas or allergies, but because they're experiencing pain that feels like it's coming from their skin when it's actually originating in their malformed skull. Studies suggest that up to 95% of Cavaliers show some degree of syringomyelia. On magnetic resonance imaging scans, though not all experience symptoms. But for those who do, life becomes an exercise in managing chronic pain. These aren't rare diseases affecting a tiny minority of dogs. These are breed-defining health crises, baked into the genetic code through generations of breeding decisions that prioritized appearance over welfare, that chased breed standards, calling for ever flatter faces, ever longer backs, ever more extreme features. We created these problems. We, humans, with our preferences and our dog shows and our desire for dogs that looked a certain way. But here's where knowledge becomes power. Understanding these genetic vulnerabilities doesn't mean living in fear, it means living with awareness, with proactivity. It means knowing what to watch for, recognizing early warning signs when there's still time to intervene. For brachycephalic breeds like French bulldogs, pugs, and English bulldogs, it means monitoring breathing carefully. If your dog snores loudly, if he struggles to recover after exercise, if he overheats easily or makes gasping sounds. These aren't just quirks, they're red flags. Early intervention, before a crisis, can make surgical outcomes better and less expensive. It means keeping your dog lean. Every extra pound puts additional stress on an already compromised respiratory system. It means avoiding hot weather and never, ever leaving him in a warm car. Not even for minutes, because these dogs cannot pant efficiently enough to cool themselves. For golden retrievers and other cancer-prone breeds, it means being vigilant about lumps and bumps. Any new mass should be evaluated by your veterinarian. It means not dismissing lethargy or loss of appetite as just your dog having an off day. It means annual blood work that can sometimes catch abnormalities before they become critical. It means knowing that early spaying or neutering, once considered standard practice, has been linked to increased cancer risk in golden retrievers specifically. A study from the University of California, Davis, published in 2013, found that golden retrievers spayed or neutered before 1 year of age had a significantly increased risk of hip dysplasia and certain cancers compared to intact dogs. Knowledge like this allows you to have informed conversations with your veterinarian about the right timing for these procedures for your individual dog. For breeds prone to intervertebral disc disease, like Dachshunds and French Bulldogs, it means managing their environment. Ramps to get on and off furniture. Carrying them up and down stairs. Using a harness instead of a collar to avoid putting pressure on the neck. Keeping them at a healthy weight, because excess pounds dramatically increase the stress on that vulnerable spine. It means not allowing jumping and rough play that could cause injury. These might seem like small accommodations, but they can mean the difference between a dog who lives comfortably into old age and one who faces paralysis at 6 years old. For German Shepherds and breeds prone to hip dysplasia and degenerative myelopathy, it means watching their gait, noticing if they're favoring a leg or having trouble rising. It means joint supplements starting in middle age, maintaining muscle tone through appropriate exercise, and considering genetic testing to know if your dog carries the degenerative myelopathy mutation. If he does, you can plan, you can prepare, you can make decisions about his quality of life before crisis forces your hand. The hidden code is no longer hidden once you know what to look for. These genetic vulnerabilities, these ticking time bombs, lose some of their power when you understand them. When you catch them early, when you manage them proactively. You can't change your dog's DNA, but you can change how that DNA expresses itself through environment, through diet, through early intervention. This is the knowledge that transforms you from a passive pet owner into an active health advocate for your companion. This is the information that might add years to your dog's life, that might save you from the heartbreak of a preventable crisis, that might mean the difference between watching your dog suffer and watching him thrive. The code is written, yes, but how the story unfolds is still, to some degree, in your hands. Sarah Martinez stood in her kitchen in Portland, Oregon, on a Tuesday morning in March 2023, holding a small cardboard box that had arrived in yesterday's mail. Inside was a cheek swab kit, a simple plastic tube with a brush on one end, accompanied by instructions printed in cheerful, accessible language. Her rescue dog, a medium-sized mixed breed named Cooper with a brindle coat and uncertain parentage, sat at her feet, tail wagging, entirely unaware that this 5-second process of rubbing a brush against his inner cheek would reveal secrets locked in his cells for generations. 3 weeks later, Sarah received an email notification. Her results were ready. She logged into her account and found herself staring at a pie chart that mapped Cooper's genetic heritage: 42% American Staffordshire Terrier, 27% Boxer, 18% German Shepherd, and 13% mixed breed groups. But it was the next section that made her pause, that tightened something in her chest. Under health risks, highlighted in orange, were 3 genetic mutations: one for degenerative myelopathy, one for progressive retinal atrophy, and one for a bleeding disorder called von Willebrand's disease. Cooper was a carrier for the first 2, meaning he wouldn't develop the diseases himself but could pass them to offspring if bred. For von Willebrand's, he had 2 copies of the mutation, meaning he had the disease. A clotting disorder that could cause excessive bleeding from minor injuries or during surgery. Sarah had adopted Cooper 6 months earlier, been told he was healthy, given him his vaccinations and heartworm prevention, and assumed everything was fine. Now she knew something that could save his life. Before any future surgery, before any dental procedure, her veterinarian would need to know about the clotting disorder. They would need to take precautions, possibly administer clotting factors, and monitor him carefully. A routine neutering surgery could have become a life-threatening emergency without this knowledge. Instead, armed with information, they could plan, prepare, and prevent. This is the DNA revolution, and it has arrived not in research laboratories or university veterinary hospitals, but in homes across America. Delivered by standard mail, accessible to anyone with $100 to $200 and a curiosity about what lies beneath their dog's surface. The technology builds on decades of genomic research. The canine genome was first fully sequenced in 2005, using DNA from a boxer named Tasha. A project that took researchers years and cost millions of dollars. That complete genetic map, published in the journal Nature, laid the foundation for everything that followed. Scientists could now compare the genomes of healthy dogs and sick dogs, searching for differences, for mutations that correlated with disease. The discoveries came rapidly. By 2015, researchers had identified genetic markers for over 150 inherited canine diseases. By 2020, that number had more than doubled. But the real revolution came when companies figured out how to make this technology affordable and accessible to ordinary dog owners. Embark Veterinary, founded in 2015 by brothers Ryan and Adam Boyko. Both geneticists who had spent years studying canine evolution, launched the first direct-to-consumer dog DNA test that combined breed identification with health screening. Their test, developed in partnership with Cornell University College of Veterinary Medicine, initially screened for over 160 genetic health conditions. By 2025, that number had grown to over 250 conditions, with discoveries added as research progressed. Wisdom Panel, owned by Mars Veterinary and leveraging decades of genetic research from Mars. PetCare's global network of veterinary hospitals offered similar services, screening for over 200 health conditions while also providing breed identification across more than 350 breeds and varieties. Their database drew from the largest collection of canine DNA samples in the world, over 2 million dogs tested, creating a reference population that made their results increasingly accurate with each new sample. The process is elegantly simple. You order a kit online. It arrives with a cheek swab, a tube to contain it, and a prepaid envelope. You swab your dog's inner cheek for 30 seconds, collecting cells from the mucous membrane. You seal the swab in its tube, place it in the envelope, and drop it in any mailbox. At the laboratory, technicians extract DNA from those cells and run it through a genotyping array. A microchip covered with hundreds of thousands of tiny DNA probes, each designed to detect specific genetic markers. The array identifies single nucleotide polymorphisms, individual letter changes in your dog's genetic code, that have been associated with breed characteristics or health conditions. Sophisticated algorithms analyze the pattern of these markers, comparing them against reference populations of known purebred dogs and documented health mutations. 2 to 4 weeks later, you receive results that would have been science fiction a generation ago. You learn not just what breeds contributed to your dog's heritage, but which specific genetic health risks he carries. You see his coat color genetics explained, understanding why he's brindle, merle, or black. You get a predicted weight range based on size gene variants. Some tests even provide trait predictions, whether your dog is likely to have a curly tail, whether he probably has webbed feet, and whether he carries the gene for blue eyes. But the health screening is where the technology transcends novelty and becomes genuinely life-changing. Consider the case of multi-drug resistance mutation, a genetic variant particularly common in herding breeds like collies, Australian shepherds, and Shetland sheepdogs. Dogs with this mutation, in the gene called MDR1, cannot properly metabolize certain common medications, including ivermectin, a drug used in many heartworm preventatives. A normal dose of ivermectin in a dog with the MDR1 mutation can cause neurological toxicity, tremors, seizures, coma, and death. Washington State University's College of Veterinary Medicine has maintained a registry of MDR1 testing since the mutation was identified in 2001. And their data shows that approximately 50% of Australian shepherds carry at least one copy of the mutation, with about 10 to 15% having two copies, making them extremely sensitive to these drugs. Before genetic testing, you might not have known that your mixed-breed dog with some herding ancestry carried this mutation until he had a catastrophic reaction to medication. Now, you can know before you ever administer the first dose. Your veterinarian can choose alternative medications, adjust dosages, and keep your dog safe from a preventable tragedy. Knowledge doesn't just empower in cases like this, it quite literally saves lives. The same principle applies to exercise-induced collapse, a condition discovered in Labrador retrievers where affected dogs develop muscle weakness and collapse after just 5 to 15 minutes of intense exercise. Dogs with two copies of the mutation, about 30 to 40% of Labradors, according to research published in 2008 by researchers at the University of Minnesota, can collapse repeatedly, sometimes progressing to severe weakness, confusion, and loss of consciousness. The episodes are terrifying for owners who don't understand what's happening, who rush their dog to emergency veterinary hospitals, fearing heart problems or seizures. But if you know through genetic testing that your dog has exercise-induced collapse, you can manage it. You avoid intense exercise. You keep the play sessions moderate. You recognize the early signs of an episode starting and stop activity immediately. The dog lives a normal lifespan with a normal quality of life. You just adjust expectations and activities accordingly. For breeders, genetic testing has become an ethical imperative. Before breeding two dogs, responsible breeders now test both parents for genetic diseases common in their breed. A dog that carries one copy of a recessive disease gene is healthy but can pass that gene to puppies. If both parents carry the same recessive disease gene, approximately 25% of puppies will inherit two copies and develop the disease. But if you test and know one parent carries a mutation, you can choose a breeding partner who doesn't carry it, ensuring no puppies will be affected. This is how genetic diseases can be slowly eliminated from breeding populations without removing otherwise excellent dogs from breeding programs, simply because they carry one copy of a mutation. The Orthopedic Foundation for Animals, established in 1966 initially to maintain a registry of dogs evaluated for hip dysplasia, has expanded their database to include DNA test results for numerous genetic conditions. Breeders can publicly register their dogs' test results, creating transparency and allowing puppy buyers to verify that genetic health testing was actually performed and what the results were. This public accountability has raised standards across the breeding community. When buyers can easily check whether a breeder tests for genetic diseases, breeders who skip testing find themselves at a competitive disadvantage. But the revolution extends beyond identifying current known mutations. Some companies now offer whole genome sequencing, examining not just the markers we know are associated with disease, but your dog's entire genetic code, all 2.4 billion base pairs. This data can be stored and reanalyzed as discoveries are made. A mutation that we don't know about today might be identified by researchers next year. And your dog's existing genetic data can be checked against that discovery without needing a new sample. Your dog's genome becomes a permanent health record, growing more valuable with time as science advances. There are limitations, of course. Genetic testing tells you about predisposition, not certainty. A dog with 2 copies of a degenerative myelopathy mutation has perhaps a 40 to 50% chance of developing symptoms. The rest won't, possibly because other genes or environmental factors influence whether the mutation actually manifests as disease. A dog that doesn't carry any tested mutations isn't guaranteed to be healthy. There are diseases we haven't identified genetic markers for yet, diseases caused by environmental factors or complex interactions of multiple genes we don't fully understand. And mixed breed identification, while generally accurate for the major breed contributors, becomes less precise as you go back generations. That 13%, supermit, or mixed breed groups, category in Cooper's results represents genetic diversity too distant or too mixed to clearly assign to specific breeds. It's ancient, mixed heritage, possibly breeds that no longer exist in their historical forms. Possibly the genetic echo of random village dogs contributing to the mix generations ago. But these limitations don't diminish the value of what genetic testing provides. Even imperfect information is better than no information. Even probabilistic knowledge is better than ignorance. When Dr. Adam Boyko, co-founder of Embark, was interviewed by National Geographic in 2019, he described the democratization of genetic knowledge as one of the most significant advances in companion animal medicine in decades. We're giving pet owners tools that were once available only to research veterinarians and elite breeding programs. We're creating a future where every dog's genetic health risks are known, where preventable tragedies are prevented, where the conversation between owner and veterinarian starts from a place of detailed, personalized information rather than breed stereotypes and guesswork. The costs have fallen to the point where testing is accessible to most pet owners. $150, the price of Embark's comprehensive test as of 2025, is less than a single emergency veterinary visit, less than many routine dental cleanings. It's a one-time expense that provides permanent information. Some veterinarians now recommend genetic testing as part of a puppy's initial health screening, alongside vaccinations and physical exams. Incorporating genetic health into wellness care from day one. Insurance companies are beginning to take notice. Some pet insurance providers now offer discounts for dogs with documented genetic testing showing low risk for expensive chronic conditions. They recognize that owners who test are owners who care, who are likely to pursue preventive care, who are probably going to be better at managing their pet's health overall. The testing itself becomes a marker of owner engagement and responsibility. Sarah Martinez, staring at Cooper's results in her Portland kitchen, felt the weight of knowledge settle on her shoulders, but it wasn't a burden. It was empowerment. She scheduled a vet appointment for the following week, brought the printed results, and had a detailed conversation about managing von Willebrand's disease. They discussed avoiding certain medications that interfere with clotting, like aspirin or non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. They talked about what to watch for, what would constitute an emergency. Her veterinarian made notes in Cooper's electronic medical record, flagging the genetic conditions so that any future veterinarian who saw Cooper would immediately see the alerts. 3 months later, when Cooper needed a tooth extraction, that information saved him. The veterinary dentist, reviewing his chart, saw the clotting disorder, adjusted the surgical protocol, administered desmopressin before the procedure to temporarily improve clotting function, and monitored him carefully afterward. The surgery went smoothly. Without that genetic knowledge, there might have been complications, unexpected bleeding, panic, and emergency interventions. Instead, there was a plan, execution of that plan, and an uneventful recovery. This is the DNA revolution in action, not flashy, not dramatic, but quietly transforming the landscape of canine healthcare. Shifting the paradigm from reactive medicine to proactive prevention, from treating diseases after they appear to managing genetic risks before they manifest. It's the difference between hoping your dog stays healthy and actively working to keep him healthy based on his unique genetic blueprint. The technology exists, the prices are reasonable, and the information is actionable. The only question is whether you'll use it, whether you'll embrace this gift of foresight that science has made possible. Whether you'll give yourself and your veterinarian the advantage of knowing what risks lie ahead in your dog's genetic code. Because once you know, once you truly understand what your dog carries in his DNA, you can't unknow it. But you can act on it, and that action might make all the difference. The apartment was 1,200 square feet on the third floor of a Brooklyn brownstone, with high ceilings and large windows that caught the afternoon sun. Hardwood floors that echoed with footsteps, and exactly 0 square feet of private outdoor space. In this apartment lived Marcus Chen, a software engineer who worked from home 4 days a week. And Coda, an 18-month-old border collie with eyes that burned with intelligence and a body that never seemed to stop moving. By 9 in the morning on most days, Coda had already destroyed the third throw pillow of the month, knocked over a lamp, chasing shadows that moved across the floor, and barked at every footstep in the hallway outside, every siren in the distance, every bicycle bell from the street below. Marcus had tried everything the internet suggested: more walks, puzzle toys, frozen Kong toys filled with peanut butter, even doggy daycare 3 days a week. Nothing seemed to diminish the whirlwind of energy, the obsessive behaviors, the constant vigilance. He loved Coda desperately, but by noon most days, Marcus felt exhausted, frustrated, trapped in a cycle where nothing he did seemed to be enough. The problem wasn't Coda. The problem was the fundamental mismatch between what Coda was bred to do and what Marcus's environment allowed him to do. A border collie's ancestors spent 10 to 12 hours a day working on Scottish farms, covering 20 to 30 miles of terrain, making thousands of split-second decisions about how to move sheep, constantly problem-solving, constantly engaged in work that challenged both body and mind. Coda's genetic programming expected the same level of physical and mental stimulation. What he got instead was 3 20-minute walks per day, an hour at daycare, where he mostly just ran in circles with other frustrated working breeds, and long stretches of time lying on a couch in an apartment, his brilliant mind churning with nothing to do, his body vibrating with unused energy. This is the crisis of lifestyle mismatch, and it's playing out in homes across America, particularly in urban areas where space is limited and working breeds are popular. The American Kennel Club's registration statistics for 2023 showed that high-energy working and herding breeds remained extremely popular in major metropolitan areas. German Shepherds ranked 3rd nationally, Australian Shepherds 9th, Border Collies 13th. Meanwhile, United States Census data from 2020 showed that 67 million Americans, roughly 20% of the population, lived in apartments or condominiums. The math doesn't work. The lifestyle doesn't match the dog. But here's what's remarkable: the solution isn't necessarily more space. It's a smarter engineering of the space and time you have. It's understanding what your specific breed needs, not just generically, exercise, but the particular type of physical and mental stimulation their genetics crave, and then creating systems and routines that deliver it. Marcus's turning point came on a Saturday in April 2024, when a dog trainer named Jennifer Kwan visited his apartment for a consultation. She didn't tell Marcus he needed to move. She didn't suggest rehoming Coda to a farm. Instead, She watched Coda for 15 minutes, observed his behaviors, asked questions about his daily routine, and then said something that reframed everything. Your dog doesn't need more exercise. He needs a job. Within 2 weeks, Marcus and Coda were attending their first agility class at a training facility in Queens, a 45-minute subway ride each way. Agility, for those unfamiliar, is a dog sport where dogs navigate obstacle courses of jumps, tunnels, weave poles, seesaws, and elevated walkways, guided by their handlers who run alongside them, calling directions. The courses require speed, precision, and constant communication between dog and human. For a border collie, it's as close to traditional herding work as you can get in an urban environment, fast-paced, mentally challenging, requiring focus and problem-solving, and the ability to take direction. After that first session, where Coda learned to jump through a tire and navigate a tunnel, something shifted. He slept in the subway car on the way home, his head heavy on Marcus's lap. That evening, for the first time in months, he settled calmly on the couch without needing to be told. The difference wasn't the hour of physical exercise. Coda could run for hours without tiring. The difference was that his mind had finally been engaged in the way it was designed to be engaged. The next day, Marcus noticed Coda watching him more carefully, waiting for direction, seeking interaction rather than creating chaos out of boredom. Marcus incorporated additional changes based on Jennifer's recommendations. Morning walks became scent work walks, where instead of trying to cover distance quickly, Marcus let Coda use his nose, hiding treats in specific locations along their route, encouraging Coda to search and find them. Research from the University of Bristol's Animal Welfare and Behavior Research Group, published in 2019, found that scent work and foraging behaviors reduced stress indicators in dogs more effectively than simple exercise, possibly because it engages their natural hunting and tracking instincts. 10 minutes of focused scent work left Coda more mentally satisfied than 30 minutes of walking on a leash. Inside the apartment, Marcus set up brain games, simple challenges he'd learned from online resources and from Jennifer. Muffin tin puzzles, where treats were hidden under tennis balls in the muffin cups, required Coda to figure out how to remove the balls. Cardboard box treasure hunts, where treats were hidden in nested boxes that Coda had to tear apart to access. Go Find games, where Marcus hid Coda's favorite toy somewhere in the apartment, and Coda had to search for it. Each game took only 5 to 10 minutes but provided cognitive stimulation that translated into a calmer, more focused dog. The transformation wasn't instantaneous or perfect. There were still challenging days. But within 6 weeks, the destructive behaviors had nearly disappeared. The constant barking diminished to occasional alerts at significant noises. Most importantly, the quality of Marcus and Coda's relationship deepened. They weren't adversaries anymore, locked in a battle over what Coda was allowed to do or not do. They were partners, working together. Marcus learning to communicate in ways Coda could understand, Coda learning to look to Marcus for direction and engagement. This principle of lifestyle engineering extends across all breeds, but the specifics vary dramatically based on what each breed was designed to do. Consider the opposite scenario: Emily Rodriguez in Scottsdale, Arizona, living in a house with a half-acre yard, who adopted a French bulldog named Gus. Emily assumed that having space meant her dog needed to use it, that a good owner walked their dog extensively, and played fetch in the yard for hours. But Gus, with his compressed airways and compromised respiratory system, didn't want or need extensive exercise. 15-minute walks in the Arizona heat left him gasping, overheated, stressed. The harder Emily tried to exercise him properly, the more health problems emerged. Heat exhaustion, respiratory distress, and exhaustion that lasted for days after a single intense play session. Emily's breakthrough came when her veterinarian, during a visit for yet another respiratory episode, explained that French bulldogs were bred to be companion dogs, to sit in laps, to provide company, to exist comfortably in small spaces with minimal exercise. "Stop trying to make him into a Labrador," the vet said gently. "He's not built for that. He's built for short, gentle activities and lots of rest." Emily redesigned Gus's lifestyle accordingly: brief morning walks before the heat peaked, gentle indoor play with soft toys, puzzle feeders that engaged his mind without stressing his body, and hours of simply being together, Gus sleeping at Emily's feet while she worked, accompanying her on errands where he could ride in the car and experience new environments without physical exertion. Gus thrived. His respiratory issues decreased. He gained appropriate weight. Most tellingly, he seemed happier, no longer pushed beyond his physical capabilities to meet an arbitrary standard of what a healthy dog lifestyle should look like. The lesson here is profound: there is no universal ideal for canine lifestyle. There is only the ideal for your specific dog, based on his breed, his individual health, his age, and his temperament. Engineering that ideal requires understanding what your dog was bred to do, then either providing that activity directly or finding modern equivalents that satisfy the same instincts. For scent hounds like beagles, bloodhounds, and basset hounds, the answer lies in nose work. Formal nose work classes, increasingly available across the United States through organizations like the National Association of Canine Scent Work, teach dogs to search for specific scents, mimicking search and rescue or detection work. Even informal versions at home, hiding treats or scented objects around your house or yard, provide the deep satisfaction these breeds crave. Dr. Alexandra Horowitz, whose research at Barnard College's Dog Cognition Lab has extensively studied canine olfaction, noted in her 2016 book, Being a Dog, Following the Dog into a World of Smell, that scent work provides cognitive enrichment that can be more tiring for a dog than physical exercise, because it engages the massive portion of their brain devoted to scent processing. For retrievers, the answer is often simpler: let them retrieve. Not just throwing a ball mindlessly in the yard, but structured retrieving games that challenge them. Water retrieves: if you have access to safe swimming areas. Golden retrievers and Labrador retrievers were bred to retrieve waterfowl from cold water, and many show pure joy when swimming that they don't display in other activities. Hide and seek requires them to search for the thrown object. Multiple retrieves where you throw several items, and they have to remember locations and retrieve them in sequence. These activities engage the specific neural pathways that have been enhanced through generations of selective breeding. For terriers, small but fierce, bred to hunt vermin in tight spaces, the answer often involves digging and tearing. Instead of punishing these behaviors, smart owners create outlets: digging boxes filled with sand, where toys are buried, tug toys and flirt poles that allow controlled, vigorous pulling and killing behaviors, puzzle toys that require manipulation and problem solving. A Jack Russell Terrier allowed to tear apart a stuffed toy in a designated play session is a Jack Russell. Who won't tear apart your couch cushions out of frustrated instinct? Diet, too, must be engineered to match breed and lifestyle. A Border Collie training for agility 3 times per week needs significantly more calories and different macronutrient ratios than a French Bulldog that takes 2 short walks daily. A working German Shepherd participating in protection sports might require a diet with 30% protein and 20% fat to maintain muscle mass and energy levels. An elderly dachshund with mild intervertebral disc disease might benefit from a lower calorie diet to maintain lean body weight. reducing stress on that vulnerable spine, plus supplements like glucosamine and chondroitin for joint support. The rise of fresh food delivery services for dogs, companies like the Farmer's Dog, Ollie, and Nom Nom, has made customized nutrition more accessible. These companies formulate recipes based on your dog's age, weight, breed, and activity level, delivering pre-portioned meals designed specifically for your dog's needs. Research published in the Journal of the American Veterinary Medical Association in 2022 found that dogs fed fresh, whole food diets showed improved digestibility, smaller stool volume, and better maintenance of healthy body condition compared to dogs fed traditional kibble. Though the study noted that any diet, commercial or fresh, can be nutritionally complete if properly formulated. But nutrition is only one component. Sleep environment matters. Exercise timing matters. Mental stimulation matters. Temperature control matters, especially for brachycephalic breeds who can't thermoregulate effectively or double-coated northern breeds, like Siberian Huskies and Alaskan Malamutes who suffer in heat. Consider the case of Lisa Thompson in Atlanta, Georgia, whose Siberian Husky named Ghost struggled terribly with the humid southern heat. Huskies were bred to pull sleds across tundra in temperatures that would kill humans. Their double coat designed to insulate against cold, their metabolism calibrated to burn enormous amounts of calories to generate body heat. Ghost's lifestyle had to be completely engineered around temperature. Walks happened before 6 in the morning or after 8 at night during the summer months. The house air conditioning was set colder than Lisa preferred, with multiple cooling mats placed in Ghost's favorite resting spots. A kiddie pool in the backyard, refreshed daily with cool water, gave Ghost a place to lie down and cool off. High-intensity exercise was saved for winter months, when temperatures dropped, and Ghost could finally run the way his body wanted to run. During a January cold snap when temperatures fell to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, Lisa watched Ghost transform, running circles in the backyard with pure joy, playing in a way he never did during warmer months, finally comfortable in the environment his genetics expected. The American Kennel Club's Canine Health Foundation has funded research into breed-specific environmental needs. Recognizing that our understanding of optimal dog care has been too generalized, too one-size-fits-all. A 2021 study they supported, examining activity levels and health outcomes across multiple breeds, found that dogs whose exercise and stimulation matched their breed's historical working role showed significantly lower rates of behavior problems, obesity, and stress-related health issues compared to dogs of the same breeds whose lifestyles didn't match their genetic programming. Technology is beginning to help. Activity trackers like Fitbark and Whistle attached to your dog's collar, monitoring movement, rest, calories burned, and even sleep quality. The data can reveal patterns you might not notice, that your supposed high-energy dog is actually sleeping 20 hours a day, suggesting understimulation. Or that your older dog is waking frequently during the night, possibly indicating pain or discomfort worth discussing with your veterinarian. Apps like Dogo and Pupper provide training exercises and games you can do at home, structured programs that build mental stimulation into daily routines. Marcus Chen, 18 months after starting agility training with Coda, had transformed not just his dog's life but his own. They competed in their first agility trial in October 2024, didn't place, made multiple mistakes, but crossed the finish line with Coda's tongue hanging out and tail wagging, with Marcus laughing, both of them exhausted and happy. The Brooklyn apartment was still 1,200 square feet with no yard. But it was no longer a prison of mismatched expectations. It was home, engineered and optimized for the specific dog who lived there, every element carefully designed to meet Coda's needs, to honor what he was bred to be, to give him purpose and challenge and satisfaction within the constraints of urban life. This is lifestyle engineering, the recognition that responsible ownership means more than providing food, water, and shelter. It means understanding your dog's genetic blueprint, his breed's historical purpose, and then deliberately designing his daily life to fulfill those genetically encoded needs, whether you're in an apartment or a house, a city or the countryside, whether you have acres of land or just a living room and your creativity. The space you have matters less than how intelligently you use it, how deeply you understand what your specific dog needs to thrive, and how committed you are to providing it, every single day, for his entire life.
The email arrived in Rebecca Lawson's inbox on a Wednesday morning in September 2023, forwarded from a friend who knew she'd been searching for a golden retriever puppy for months. The subject line read, "Golden Retriever puppies available, champion bloodlines." The message was brief, professional sounding, with photos attached of 8 adorable golden puppies, tumbling over each other in what appeared to be a clean, spacious kennel. The price was listed as $1,200, a bargain. According to the email, compared to the $2,500 to $3,000 that reputable breeders in her area were charging. There was a phone number, a name, and a promise. These puppies come from health-tested parents with excellent temperaments, ready for their forever homes. Rebecca, a high school teacher in suburban Columbus, Ohio, wanted to believe it. She'd been on waiting lists for months, watching litter after litter get spoken for before she even had a chance. The cost difference was significant. $1,200 felt manageable, while $3,000 pushed the limits of what she could reasonably spend. She picked up her phone to call the number, her finger hovering over the screen, when something made her pause. A conversation she'd had weeks earlier with her veterinarian, Drive. Michael Park, echoed in her memory. When you find a breeder, ask about health testing. Not a vet check. Actual genetic and orthopedic testing registered with the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals. If they can't provide those numbers, walk away. Rebecca wrote back to the email instead of calling, asking a simple question: can you provide the OFA numbers for the parent's hip, elbow, heart, and eye clearances? The response came 3 hours later: our vet has examined all our dogs and certified them healthy. We can provide vet records. That wasn't what she'd asked. She pushed harder. I'm specifically looking for OFA registration numbers and genetic health testing results through Embark or a similar service. Can you provide those? This time, the response took 2 days. We stand behind the health of our puppies. If you're not interested, we have other buyers waiting. Rebecca deleted the email and stayed on her waiting lists. 4 months later, in January 2024, Rebecca brought home an 8-week-old golden retriever puppy named Maple from a breeder 3 hours away in rural Pennsylvania. The breeder's name was Dr. Patricia Whitmore, a retired veterinarian who had been breeding golden retrievers for 27 years. Patricia's website wasn't flashy, didn't promise champion bloodlines or use high-pressure sales tactics. Instead, it detailed her breeding philosophy, listed every health test performed on every dog, provided OFA registration numbers that Rebecca could independently verify on the OFA website, showed genetic testing results for over 20 conditions, and included a contract that required the puppy to be returned to Patricia if Rebecca ever couldn't keep her. No matter the age or reason, ensuring no dog from her breeding program would ever end up in a shelter or rescue. The cost was $2,800. For that price, Rebecca got a puppy whose parents both had excellent hip scores, verified clear cardiac evaluations, annual eye exams, showing no signs of hereditary eye disease, and genetic testing showing they didn't carry mutations for the most common serious conditions. affecting golden retrievers, including progressive retinal atrophy and ichthyosis. She got a breeder who answered every question, who invited her to visit twice before the puppies were born, who performed early neurological stimulation exercises with the puppies from day 3 through day 16 of life. A protocol developed by the military and shown to produce dogs with improved stress tolerance and learning capacity. She got a lifetime of support, a breeder who responded to her panicked text at 10 at night when 8-month-old Maple had diarrhea, who checked in at 6 months, 12 months, and 18 months to see how Maple was developing, who genuinely cared about the life of the dog she'd brought into the world. Most importantly, she got a dog whose genetic health had been actively managed, whose parents had been chosen not for looks or championship titles, but for health, temperament, and genetic diversity. Patricia showed Rebecca the coefficient of inbreeding for Maple's litter 3.2%, well below the breed average of 6 to 7%. Lower inbreeding means greater genetic diversity, which generally correlates with better health and longer lifespan. A study published in Mammalian Genome in 2021, analyzing genetic data from over 49,000 dogs across 215 breeds, found that increased genetic diversity within breeds was associated with reduced prevalence of recessive disease alleles and overall improved health outcomes. This is ethical breeding, and it's not the norm. It should be, but it isn't. The reality is that most puppies sold in America come from sources that don't perform comprehensive health testing, don't consider genetic diversity, don't provide lifetime support, and don't take responsibility for the lives they create. The American Kennel Club registers approximately 1 million dogs per year. The number of litters from health-tested parents registered with the OFA represents a small fraction of that total. The math is uncomfortable. Most purebred puppies in America come from breeders who are cutting corners, prioritizing profit over welfare, or simply don't know enough about genetics to breed responsibly. And then there's the darker side: commercial breeding facilities, often called puppy mills, where dogs are production units, kept in cages, bred every heat cycle, receiving minimal veterinary care and no health testing. The Humane Society of the United States estimates that approximately 2 million puppies are sold from puppy mills annually, often through pet stores or online marketplaces that disguise the source. These puppies frequently have health problems, behavioral issues stemming from inadequate early socialization, and genetic diseases that won't manifest until the dog is older, well past any return period. The Missouri Department of Agriculture, which licenses and inspects commercial breeding facilities in a state known for high concentrations of such operations, reported in 2022 that of the facilities inspected, 37% had at least one violation of the Animal Welfare Act during their most recent inspection, including inadequate veterinary care, insufficient housing, and poor sanitation. But ethical ownership isn't just about where you get your dog. It's about what you do after, and it's about advocating for better standards across the entire dog breeding and dog owning community. Consider the rescue side of the equation. Approximately 3.3 million dogs enter animal shelters in the United States annually, according to data from the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals compiled in 2023. Of those, approximately 2 million are adopted, and roughly 390,000 are euthanized. These aren't just statistics, these are individual dogs, each with a story. Many of whom ended up in shelters because their original owners didn't understand what they were getting into, didn't know about breed characteristics or genetic health issues, and weren't prepared for the commitment. James Mitchell adopted a dog from Austin Pets Alive, a large no-kill shelter in Texas, in March 2023. The dog, named Ranger by the shelter, was listed as a 3-year-old Labrador mix, friendly with people, house-trained, good with kids. James, a single father with 2 children aged 8 and 11, thought Ranger would be perfect. The adoption fee was $150, which included neutering, vaccinations, and a microchip. James brought Ranger home on a Saturday. By Monday, James was questioning everything. Ranger was not remotely house-trained. He was destructive when left alone, tearing up furniture and scratching at doors with frantic intensity. He barked constantly at neighbors, at delivery people, at nothing visible. The "friendly with people" description seemed questionable when Ranger growled at James's daughter when she approached his food bowl. After a week of escalating problems, James called the shelter in desperation. What James didn't know, what the shelter possibly didn't know, was what breeds actually comprised Ranger's genetic makeup, and what health or behavioral predispositions he carried. The shelter had made educated guesses based on appearance, but appearance can be misleading. James, on the recommendation of a behaviorist he'd consulted after the food bowl incident, ordered an Embark DNA test. The results revealed that Ranger was 48% German Shepherd, 32% Belgian Malinois, and 20% mixed herding breeds. 0% Labrador Retriever. This wasn't a laid-back family pet, this was a dog bred from 2 of the most intense working breeds in existence. Both developed for police and military work, for protection, for high-intensity jobs requiring intelligence, drive, and a strong prey drive. The house destruction wasn't random, it was frustration from a working dog with nothing to work on. The barking was a territorial guarding instinct. The food bowl guarding was resource guarding, a behavior that needed professional training to address safely. Armed with this information, James made different choices. He hired a trainer specializing in working breeds. He enrolled Ranger in protection sports training at a facility that specialized in German Shepherds and Malinois. He increased exercise dramatically, added mental stimulation through scent work and puzzle feeders, and established clear rules and boundaries that a dog bred for structure and leadership could understand and follow. Within 3 months, Ranger was a different dog, still intense, still requiring significant daily engagement, but channeled, focused, thriving. The food bowl guarding was resolved through careful training. The destruction stopped. The excessive barking diminished. But James also acknowledged that if he'd known, if the shelter had DNA tested Ranger and disclosed that information, he might not have adopted him. Not because Ranger wasn't a good dog, but because the lifestyle demands of a German Shepherd Malinois mix weren't what James had been looking for. He made it work, grew to love Ranger deeply, but he often wondered if there was another family who passed on Ranger, looking for that mythical, friendly lab mix, who would have been perfect for him, who actively wanted a high-drive working breed. Meanwhile, maybe there was an actual Labrador mix in the shelter, a dog that would have been perfect for James's family, who went to someone else. This is why genetic testing for shelter and rescue dogs isn't a luxury, it's an ethical imperative. It's informed consent for adoption. It helps shelters market dogs accurately, helps potential adopters make educated decisions, and reduces the heartbreak of failed adoptions and dogs being returned. Several progressive shelters and rescue organizations now DNA test every dog they take in. Maddie's Fund, a national family foundation working to revolutionize shelter medicine, has funded studies on the impact of DNA testing in shelter settings. Their 2022 report found that shelters providing DNA test results with adoptions saw a 12% reduction in return rates within 6 months, and adopters reported higher satisfaction with their new pets, feeling they'd made more informed decisions. Ethical ownership also means advocating for better breeding practices even if you're not a breeder yourself. It means asking questions when friends or family mention they're getting a puppy. It means gently educating when someone shares a photo of a puppy they're buying from a pet store or a suspicious online listing. It means supporting legislation that establishes minimum standards for commercial breeding facilities, that requires transparency in puppy sales. And that makes it harder for irresponsible breeders to operate. The Puppy Protection Act, introduced in Congress in 2023. Though not yet passed as of early 2025, would establish federal minimum standards for commercial dog breeding facilities. Prohibit the sale of puppies under 8 weeks of age, and require disclosure of breeding facility information to purchasers. Organizations like the American Veterinary Medical Association and the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals have endorsed the legislation. Individual advocates, people like Rebecca who learned about ethical breeding through research, have contacted their representatives, testified at state legislative hearings, and added their voices to the movement for better standards. It means supporting organizations doing the work. The Orthopedic Foundation for Animals, operating since 1966, maintains the largest databases of canine health information in the world, all publicly accessible. They're funded primarily by the fees breeders pay to register health testing, and by donations from individuals who understand the importance of their work. The American Kennel Club Canine Health Foundation funds research into genetic diseases and breeding strategies that maintain diversity while reducing disease prevalence. These organizations operate on relatively small budgets compared to the economic scale of the dog breeding and ownership industry. Individual donations of $50 or $100, multiplied across thousands of supporters, fund the research that identifies the genetic mutations, that develops the tests, that creates the knowledge base that makes informed breeding and ownership possible. Ethical ownership means thinking beyond your own dog, beyond your own household. It means recognizing that every purchasing decision, every breeding decision, every adoption decision sends a signal to the market about what's acceptable, what's valued, what's demanded. When Rebecca paid $2,800 for Maple from a health testing breeder, instead of $1,200 from a source that couldn't provide OFA numbers, she voted with her money. She made ethical breeding slightly more profitable than careless breeding. When James adopted from a shelter instead of buying a puppy, he saved a life and reduced demand for commercially bred puppies. When shelters invest in DNA testing, they improve outcomes for dogs and adopters. Dr. Patricia Whitmore, Rebecca's breeder, often says something in her puppy buyer interviews that captures the essence of ethical breeding. "I don't breed dogs to make money. I breed dogs because I love this breed, because I want to see healthy golden retrievers living long lives with families who adore them, 50 years from now, 100 years from now. Every puppy I bring into the world is my responsibility, forever. Every mating decision I make affects the genetic health of the breed. I take that seriously, because if breeders don't take it seriously, who will?" That same principle applies to ownership. The dog you bring into your home is your responsibility, forever. Or until you find them a new home that you've carefully vetted as being equal to or better than what you can provide. It's not conditional on the dog being easy or convenient or always behaving perfectly. It's a commitment you make to a living being who depends entirely on you for everything: food, shelter, medical care, mental stimulation, love, safety. Rebecca, holding 8-week-old Maple on the drive home from Pennsylvania, feeling the warm weight of the sleeping puppy in her lap, understood that she wasn't just taking home a pet. She was accepting responsibility for a life, for the next 12 to 15 years, for every decision that would affect Maple's health and happiness. She was joining a community of people who take that responsibility seriously, who do the research, who pay the extra money for health testing and quality care, who advocate for better standards, who speak up when they see neglect or cruelty, who celebrate the good breeders and support the shelters doing the hard work. This is the vision of future where every dog comes from a health-tested background, where every adopter has access to genetic information, where breeding is done thoughtfully with diversity and welfare as primary concerns, where owners are educated and committed, and where shelters and rescues have the resources to provide comprehensive care and assessment. It's not a fantasy, it's an achievable goal if enough individuals make ethical choices, demand better standards, and take responsibility not just for their own dogs, but for contributing to a healthier, more humane canine world. The journey that began with understanding your dog's behavioral blueprint, recognizing genetic health risks, utilizing modern DNA testing, and engineering an appropriate lifestyle culminates here in the recognition that we, collectively, shape the future of dogs. Every choice matters. Every voice matters. Every dog deserves an owner who understands what they're taking on, who's prepared for the commitment, who will be there for the entire lifespan, through the easy puppyhood and the challenging adolescence and the golden senior years. This is ethical ownership. This is the standard we should all aspire to, the world we should all work to create, one dog, one decision, one voice at a time.